everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kamika and I started this channel to just really talk about spiritual things and everything I've learned along my journey. Today I'm discussing something I think is very extremely important on a healing journey, which is the inner child. Now the inner child is basically the child version of you that still lives within you. It's the part of you that still holds all the things that were crucial in your development as a child, emotionally and mentally. When traumatic events occur in childhood, we often get what is called inner child wounds. These are wounds that we carry with us. And sometimes the wounds of the inner child cause us to be feeling things or experiencing things even as we grow that we might not fully understand. Sometimes you might be having an emotion and being like, why am I feeling like this all of a sudden? Or noticing that when you're interacting with certain people, it's evoking certain feelings. For example, an abandonment wound, that could be an inner child wound and affects how you feel and how you interact with people. So if your inner child is wounded, it's important to learn how to heal this inner child, to regulate your own self and process and move on from things that happen in childhood. For me, inner child work has been extremely important, especially with somebody with a lot of childhood trauma. And even right now, I'm still doing inner child work. You know, the beautiful thing about it is it doesn't like just stop once you heal certain things. You'll always have to take care of that version of yourself. So one of the methods I like to really do when it comes to inner child healing is shadow work. So these are like journal prompts that you can find online or even write them yourself. But if you just look up like inner child healing prompts and answer the questions, that there will be a lot will come up. Especially I always go to Pinterest, I find a bunch, so you can look those up and answer those questions in your journal. For me, I know I always struggle when I'm doing healing work. I always struggle with turning it into work actually, and not as an act of self-care. So when you are doing it, look at it as like giving that child room to speak, room to say what they never got to say, or to be heard in the ways that they weren't heard in the past. Sometimes inner child work can be deeply, it can be a bit unsettling at times, it can be hard, it can be painful sometimes as well, especially when you're giving light to a lot of these deep wounds. And so it's also important to ground yourself before and after inner child work, or actually just in general for any meditation or anything you're going to do. It's actually really important to ground yourself, and you could do that by you know, guided meditations or visualizing, being rooted in the earth, or wherever you're seeing, like visioning roots, really connecting to that Muladhara chakra and grounding yourself in your body, in your own feelings. Another method that I use for inner child healing is visualizations. Now this part is kind of tough and it's kind of difficult depending on which type of visualization you can do. A basic level visualization for the inner child would just be something like, you know, imagining you see them, you see your inner child, you're with your inner child doing something that you used to enjoy as a kid. So imagine like painting or coloring with your inner child, or hugging them, or just anything like comforting the inner child by yourself. That's one thing. To go a bit deeper into wounds, something I have done in the past that's been a very, sometimes a difficult process, but it is quite effective, is to visualize the memories, whatever the memory that is disturbing your inner child at the time, and you'd essentially go into that memory as yourself now, and basically could be protecting your inner child or pulling your inner child away from that situation and giving the inner child comfort and love and some sort of understanding depending on what was happening. But that can be very, I wouldn't advise someone to do that as the first type of inner child work they ever do, because that can be something of if you're going back into memories of traumatizing things, you can bring up things that are extremely heavy and harder to deal with. So I wouldn't advise that as like a first time, but if you feel like you can go into that memory with that and you're grounded enough, then you should do that. So that's something I like to do, but I only do that when I'm ready. I never just jump into it. If something's disturbing me, I'm gonna handle it in other ways first. If I feel ready enough to go into that memory again, I will do that. And another visualization you can do is if you have any kind of, for example, your Ishtadevam, whoever that may be, you can also visualize or ask your Ishtadevam to be with your inner child. And you can do like a kind of meditation or visualization where you visualize them holding your inner child and comforting and all of that stuff. Third thing is something to do in the physical, which is like, if you enjoyed, let's say, swimming as a child, then go back and start to swim. If you enjoyed painting as a child, start to paint again. If you enjoyed singing, dancing, whatever it is that you loved as a child, allow that part of you to be present again. Allow yourself to enjoy those things again. Because one thing I notice about especially myself is, I don't know if this is an Ardra thing, because Ardra Nakshatra, I know we have like this kind of darker look on life, but for me, whenever I do inner child work, everything I do is like dark and heavy stuff. Like, I always be looking at the most traumatic times. I'll be looking at like all that stuff that I need to like, and I look at it, I need to work on this. And like I was saying in the start, I turn it into work as opposed to healing. But one thing that was coming to me recently is that I'm not like giving my inner child enough joy all the time. You know, it's always processing emotions, processing trauma, processing fear, processing, and it's sometimes I have to let her enjoy herself. I have to let my inner child live and have fun. I have to have fun and live. It's also important to do things that you enjoy and bring some light into this. You're creating a space for yourself where you now realize, like, we're not back there. We're not back in that traumatic moment. We're not there with those, we're not in that situation. We're not with those people anymore. Now we are free to enjoy. And it can be very healing to finally have a space where you can do what you enjoy freely. Another thing I will say is, be around people that make your inner child feel safe, and do things for yourself that make your inner child feel safe. Be around people that make you feel safe, and the people that bring out that childlike happiness in you. Treat yourself as, like, treat your inner child and treat yourself with that same gentleness that you deserved back then. Emotional patterns might come up. For example, if something happened to you when you was younger, and let's say you were frightened or something, then, and nobody helped you in that time, you might find that years later you will still feel that same fear or that same emotion you felt in that situation. The reason this happens is because when a child goes through something and isn't comforted, it locks into your nervous system. So what happens is, over time, it's a subconscious thing. It will keep coming back, and you might be confused, like, why am I still feeling this? This is something that happened ages ago. I'm still experiencing this thing. But now you have this opportunity to give that inner child whatever they needed in that moment of time. If it was a hug they needed, if it was comfort they needed, if it was kind words, you can give that to your inner child through visualization, through meditations, through just the way you talk to yourself also is a big thing. Because I noticed as well, like for myself, I'm very hard on myself. Think about that inner child that you're talking to harshly. If you're telling yourself these things every day, like, oh, why can't I get this right? Why can't I? It could be because of wounds. People, you could have grown up hearing that you're not right, you're not good at this, why are you like this? And what this does is it develops a sort of warped internal judge. Like, you're judging yourself for things that you don't even need to judge yourself for. But over time, as a child hears these things over and over again, it's what goes into their mind. Just even switching the way you think, that is extremely healing. Say you're trying to carry something somewhere and you spill or you drop whatever it is you're holding. First thought might be, oh, why am I like this? I can't get anything right. See, this is something that perpetuates these damaging self-concepts and what the inner child has been told. If every time you made a mistake growing up, you were told that something was wrong with you, that's how you'll think. But just shifting that to, you know what, I made a mistake, it happens, I'm just gonna clean this up, it's fine. Even that in itself is extremely healing for the inner child. You're starting to unlearn the negative things you were told, and you start to learn that, you know what, I can exist here freely. I'm allowed to be who I am. I'm allowed to make mistakes. Sometimes inner child healing can just be as simple as, okay, I'm feeling this thing, and I know once you do more of it, you'll start to recognize what things are inner child wounds. For example, abandonment wounds. This is something I have struggled with myself personally, so I understand how difficult it is to feel like people are leaving you all the time. For example, somebody doesn't message you back on time, and you can start to feel like, oh my god, like, what if they're leaving? What if they don't like me anymore? Like, you could start to panic. just notice that's your inner child speaking. She, like, worrying that someone's leaving me again. You can do like even just a little tiny visualization. You don't even have to visualize anything. Just close your eyes and speak to that inner child and tell, you know what, everything's fine. This person's probably busy. Because, you know, sometimes the inner child doesn't actually respond to logical thoughts. It's more just an emotional thing. They just need comfort sometimes. Whatever you needed back then. That's the principle. And one thing I also want to add is that, you know, sometimes just because you logically understand now as an adult or whatever age you are, you understand things now, like, oh, I understand why this happened, or I understand why I don't need to feel like this anymore. The inner child doesn't necessarily know that. And even if you tell your inner child logically, sometimes all you need to do is stay with your inner child. All you need to do is just be there for a while. And sometimes these emotions will linger, and it's not necessarily about getting rid of them. That can also be another inner child wound. If you weren't allowed to express your feelings freely as a child, or if your feelings were always dismissed, you might find that whenever you have an emotion that's intense, like anger or sadness or grief or shame or whatever, you might feel this urge to get rid of it immediately. Like, I can't have this feeling in me, I need it gone. So you might be trying to do everything in the book, going on journal prompts, yoga, whatever you're doing to try and get these feelings out of your system. But they're not just gonna leave because you say so, or because of the work you're putting in. The work is to heal the wounds, but just like physical wounds, they never heal instantly. Even paper cuts don't heal instantly. You have to be patient. So treat it like you're dressing a wound. It's not, oh, I'm gonna put medicine and it's gonna heal immediately. You just have to wait. For me, I have the same thing. I'm like always rushing to get rid of my feelings. I can feel them, but I don't want them there. Like, I want to feel better. And what I used to do was just suppress them completely, just push them all down, never speak about them, never feel them, nothing. Don't suppress them. And even now I'm still learning, but I definitely would say I'm getting better at this. Okay, and sometimes you might feel like you're not getting anywhere spiritually, and you might be doing every meditation, every mantra that you can think of, and you might feel like, okay, but why do I still feel this way, or why does life still feel off? And sometimes it's just this. Sometimes it's just inner child or inner wounds that haven't been healed or processed properly, and it's okay. But one thing I do want you to remember at the end of this video is there's a saying, I forget the person who said this, but it's a Hindu saying, and it's like, all these are passing clouds, but I am the sky. And I just think it's important to remember that whatever you're going through and whatever you're feeling, all of these things are like clouds. You know, they pass you, but you are the sky. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something from it. Feel free to leave me any comments of what things to talk about next. And if you have any questions about inner child healing, I'll be happy to answer them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hara Hara Mahadev.